Welcome to our deep dive. Today we're going to be talking about longevity, and we've got a really interesting source material.
Yeah, definitely unique.
Yeah, it's a fictional novel. It's called The Cure, and it's kind of interwoven with these chapters about the author, who's a real person, a Dr. Harrison Hawk. He's actually a big name in longevity research.
Yeah, he's done a lot of work in the field.
Yeah, and so it's really fascinating. The book has a disclaimer, saying it's a work of fiction, but the way it blends actual science with this thriller plot.
It really makes you think,
Yeah.
like, what if this could actually happen?
Yeah, like where does the fiction end and the reality begin?
Right. And it's particularly interesting how the novel uses those fictional elements to explore some real concerns and possibilities around stem cell research.
And the idea of reversing aging, right?
Absolutely. That's a
Yeah.
huge one.
So that's what we're going to be looking at today. We're going to sort of navigate between the fact and the fiction and really dive into the science of aging. And of course, the ethical questions that come up, as we start pushing these boundaries. What do you think? Are you ready to jump in?
Let's do it. I'm excited to see where this goes.
All right, so the story, it kind of starts off like a spy thriller almost. It opens in Wuhan, November 2019, with this virologist, a Dr. Li Weiming, and he's sending this text message to Harrison, a really cryptic one.
It's about a book that Leaf borrowed.
Yeah, but the timing, right? I mean, it's 2019 in Wuhan. Immediately you're thinking, okay, is there something more to this? Given what we know now about what was happening there.
Absolutely. And that real-world context adds so much tension. Like, is Lee trying to warn Harrison about something bigger than just a book?
That's the question, isn't it? What's the real message here? And then the novel kind of shifts gears, and we go into a chapter where Harrison is teaching, he's explaining epigenetics, like how our cells' communication starts to break down as we age.
It's amazing how he breaks it down. Makes it really easy to understand.
Oh, yeah, he's got these great analogies. I remember one where he compares a cell to a symphony orchestra.
Oh, yeah, I love that one. So when the orchestra's young, everything's working perfectly, all the instruments are in sync, beautiful music. But as the orchestra ages,
Things get a little out of tune.
exactly, instruments start to falter, rhythms get messed up, the harmony breaks down. And that's kind of like what happens with our cells, he says.
It's such a good visual, right? It's like you can almost hear those discordant notes as our cells lose their ability to communicate effectively.
And that breakdown in communication, as Harrison points out, is at the heart of so many age-related problems.
Diseases, dysfunctions, everything, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then he goes even deeper, explaining DNA, methylation, and histones. It's like he's peeling back the layers of this complex machine that controls our lifespan.
Okay, so you're going to have to remind me about those. DNA is our genetic blueprint, right? But what are DNA methylation and histones?
Okay, so think of DNA methylation as like a set of switches that can turn genes on or off. So like you're adding or removing notes from a musical score.
Mm.
And as we age, these switches can get stuck. The wrong genes get turned on or off.
Oh, I see. So that's what throws things out of whack.
Right. And then histones, those are like the scaffolding that DNA wraps around. And changes to that scaffolding can also affect how genes are accessed and expressed.
Okay, so it's like this super intricate system of checks and balances. And as we get older, those systems start to malfunction. That's what leads to aging.
Exactly. And this is where Harrison's research comes in. He's looking into different compounds and therapies that have shown some promise in reversing those age-related changes.
Yeah, he mentions things like rapamycin, NAD+, coic peptides, and even stem cell exosomes.
So that's where it gets interesting, right? Because those are actual things being studied in the real world,
Yeah.
not just science fiction.
So it's blurring the lines a bit. It makes you wonder, how far off are we from actually being able to reverse aging?
That's the big question, right? I mean, it's not like we can just take a pill and turn back the clock yet.
Yeah.
But the novel is definitely tapping into some real scientific advancements and possibilities.
Yeah, and it gets you thinking about, what if it did become possible? What would that mean for society?
Absolutely. And those questions become even more important as the story introduces this mysterious substance called zephyr. It's described as having these almost miraculous longevity properties.
And then, of course, things go sideways. Harrison's former colleague, this guy named Bill Thompson, he steals the Zephyr and goes into hiding.
It turns into this whole international intrigue thing.
Yeah, Bill's trying to use the Zephyr for his own gain, but it doesn't exactly go according to plan for him.
Right. He ends up in Amman, Jordan, and things get pretty dangerous for him there.
And ultimately, he ends up dying in Amman, but before he does, he sends the Zephyr to his estranged wife, Mary.
It's a pivotal moment in the story, right? Because even in death, Bill's actions have these huge ripple effects.
And Mary, she makes a decision that changes everything. She decides to send the Zephyr to Harrison.
It's a huge act of trust, right? She recognizes the potential danger of the Zephyr, and she believes Harrison is the only one who can handle it responsibly.
Absolutely, and it speaks to Harrison's character too, right? He's this brilliant scientist, but also someone who's seen as having integrity, someone you can trust with something this powerful.
And when Harrison starts studying the Zephyr, he uses all these different scientific methods: cell cultures, proteomic analysis, senescence assays, epigenetic studies.
It's really cool. It's like we get this glimpse into how scientists actually study aging.
Yeah, and it's not just made up stuff. These are real techniques.
Right, so even though the substance itself is fictional, the methods are real. It makes it all feel that much more believable, you know?
And as Harrison starts unraveling the secrets of the Zephyr, he starts to see its true potential. It's not just about slowing down aging. It might actually be able to reverse it.
And that's where things get really interesting. Because if we could reverse aging, what would that mean for society?
It's a huge question, right? Who would have access to that kind of technology? Would it be available to everyone? Or would it just create a bigger divide between the haves and have-nots?
And then, to complicate things even further, Harrison's personal life starts to get entangled with his research. We meet his estranged son, Aiden, and his granddaughter, Jessica, who has early onset Parkinson's.
It adds a whole new layer of complexity to the story. Their relationship with Harrison is already strained.
And then, to top it all off, Harrison gets kidnapped.
And Aiden finds this strange symbol at the scene of the kidnapping. It turns out to be the symbol of a secret organization, the Thule Society.
And that's where things take a really dark turn, because this Thule Society, they're not just some fictional group, they have roots in actual history.
They're associated with some pretty dark stuff, too. Occult beliefs, Nazi connections. It's a bit unnerving, to be honest.
Okay, so we've got cutting-edge science, we've got international intrigue, family drama, a secret society with a shadowy past. Where do we go from here?
Well, that's where we'll pick up in part 2 of our deep dive. We'll follow Aiden as he tries to uncover the truth about his father's disappearance and the secrets of the Zephyr. Things are about to get a whole lot more complicated.
Okay, so we're back, and things are definitely heating up in The Cure. We left off with Harrison's kidnapping, right? And that mysterious Thule Society symbol.
It's getting pretty intense.
So Aiden, Harrison's son, he's basically thrown headfirst into this whole world of, like, international intrigue, you know? He's trying to find his dad, but also uncover the truth about this Zephyr.
And his search takes him all the way to Argentina.
Oh, yeah. It's like straight out of a spy movie. He's following the trail of this Thule Society to their, like, super secret compound where they're doing all this shady stuff.
A pretty remote location.
Yeah, way out in the middle of nowhere. And what Aiden finds there, it's really chilling.
Not just a lab, it's like
A whole breeding program, right? Like they're engineering a new generation of people, genetically modified for longevity and all these enhanced abilities.
Yeah, it's pretty ethically questionable, to say the least.
Yep.
Makes you think about how far we're willing to go in the pursuit of, living longer.
And designer babies, I mean, that's a whole other can of worms, right?
Totally. Like, imagine a world where you can literally order up specific traits for your kid. It could create this whole new level of inequality.
Oh, absolutely. And for Aiden, it's even more complicated because, remember, his daughter Jessica has Parkinson's, and the Zephyr could potentially cure her.
So he's got this huge dilemma. Does he prioritize his family, even if it means risking the Zephyr falling into the wrong hands?
Right, because who knows what the Thule Society would do with that kind of power.
Tough call. No easy answers there.
And then, just when you think things couldn't get any crazier, we get introduced to another group, the Custodians.
And they've got their own agenda.
Oh yeah, they claim they're protecting the Zephyr, that they've been guarding it for generations.
And their connection to the Zephyr goes way back. Like ancient history back. All the way to Petra in Jordan.
Which is mind-blowing in itself, like this ancient city carved into the cliffs. So Aiden starts digging into the history, and he uncovers this connection between the Zephyr and a meteorite that crashed in the desert thousands of years ago.
It's like, whoa, the origins of this stuff are way deeper than anyone thought.
Yeah, it's like science fiction meets ancient history. So Aiden gets this idea that he needs to find a piece of this meteorite.
He thinks it holds the key to recreating the Zephyr.
Which makes sense in a way. If you know the original source of the power, maybe you can, tap into it again.
So he sets his sights on the Deutsches Museum in Munich.
They have this Iron Man statue, right?
And it's believed to be made from a fragment of this ancient meteorite.
It's crazy how all these pieces start to fit together. And luckily, remember Mary, Bill's wife, she's got connections at the museum.
Yeah, she's an art historian, so she knows her stuff.
Exactly. So she's able to help Aiden get access to the statue, but it's not that simple, of course.
The custodians, they're onto him.
Oh, yeah. They're not happy about this. They don't want the Zephyr's secrets getting out, so they try to stop Aiden.
Leads to this whole standoff at the museum.
Yeah, it's pretty intense. You've got Aiden trying to save his family, and the custodians, they're like, playing the long game, you know? Protecting humanity from this potentially dangerous power.
Yeah, it makes you think about who's really in the right here. It's not so clear-cut.
And then, just as Aiden's about to escape with the Iron Man statue, he realizes he can't do this alone.
He needs more firepower.
Yeah, so he makes a risky decision. He reaches out to his contacts in the FBI.
Which is a huge gamble.
Oh, yeah, he's basically bringing the government into this whole crazy situation.
And it could backfire big time. I mean, what if the FBI decide they want to control the Zephyr for themselves?
But Aiden's desperate, right? He needs help, and he needs it now.
And luckily for him, the FBI agents he contacts, they're pretty awesome.
Yeah, Laura Duncan and Noah, they're like the good guys you want on your side.
They're driven by justice. They want to do the right thing.
So Aiden's got a team now. He's got the Iron Man statue. He's on his way back to Argentina to face the Thule Society. What could possibly go wrong?
Oh, I'm sure plenty can and will.
Okay, so here we are, the final showdown. Aiden and the FBI, they're heading back to that Thule Society compound in Argentina.
Armed with the recreated Zephyr. Let's all come down to this.
Yeah, but even with the Zephyr, I mean, things are so complicated now. You've got Aiden, he wants to rescue his dad and Elizabeth.
And the FBI, they've got their own objectives, right?
Oh.
They want to shut down the Thule Society, maybe even figure out how to use the Zephyr for national security.
And then you've got the custodians. They're still lurking in the background. Who knows what their play is?
It's a powder keg ready to explode.
And it does almost immediately. The planned exchange with the Thule Society goes completely south.
Yeah, the Thule Society, they're not playing by the rules.
They're not interested in a fair trade. They take the FBI agents hostage, recapture Elizabeth.
And Aiden, he's left with nothing. It's brutal.
And then we finally meet the leader of the Thule Society.
And it turns out...
to be Harrison's former lover. It's mind-blowing.
Right. Like, talk about a betrayal.
It's not just personal. It's a betrayal of science, of everything they once believed in.
Shows you how this obsession with longevity can twist people, even the smartest ones.
So now what? Aiden's completely outmatched. He's got to find a way to save his family. But the Thule Society, they seem unstoppable.
He realizes pretty quickly that he can't fight them on his own.
So he makes a deal with the devil, basically. He teams up with the custodians.
It's a risky move, but desperate times, right?
They're not exactly friends, but they have a common enemy now.
And meanwhile, back at the compound, Harrison's forced to keep working on that Genesis sex serum, the rejuvenating treatment.
But he's not giving up. He's got a plan.
A pretty crazy one, actually.
He decides to weaponize the COVID-19 virus.
Whoa, using a virus as a weapon.
It's extreme, right? But he's desperate. It's like, fight fire with fire. He uses a humidifier to release this modified version of the virus into the compound.
Creating chaos.
And it works. The whole place goes into lockdown. People are getting sick. It gives Aiden and the custodians the chance to sneak in.
It's like something out of an action movie, right? Gunfights, explosions, narrow escapes.
And in all the chaos, one of the custodians, Diego, he ends up sacrificing himself to save Jessica.
Yeah, he redeems himself. Shows you that even people who start out as antagonists can have a change of heart.
So much happens, it's hard to keep track. But finally, Aiden finds his dad. They have this emotional reunion.
But then, in the final confrontation with the leader, Harrison.
He's killed. It's tragic. Like, even in victory, there's this huge loss.
But Jessica, she gets the Genesis X treatment. She's cured of Parkinson's.
It's what Harrison would have wanted, right? To use his knowledge to help people.
And the Zephyr? What happened to it?
It's gone. Disappeared in the chaos.
Lost, maybe forever.
Which I think is interesting, right? It leaves us with this sense of mystery. Like, what will happen if it resurfaces?
The cure. It makes you think about these big questions. The power of science, the responsibility that comes with it, and the lengths people will go to for immortality.
Yeah, it's not your typical science fiction thriller. It gets under your skin.
Definitely makes you think about, what would you do if you had access to this kind of technology?
It's a conversation we need to be having, right? As science keeps advancing.
Absolutely. And thanks for joining us for this deep dive. It's been a wild ride.
Yeah, the cure will definitely give you a lot to think about, maybe even keep you up at night.